Hello, my name is Charlotte Crosswell and I'm Chief Executive of Innovate Finance. Innovate Finance, for those who don't know, is the UK's industry body for fintech. Our members range from fintechs to banks to asset managers to insurers to global fintech hubs and to investors. And I'm delighted to join the Singapore Fintech Festival this week. I'm even more delighted that I get the chance to interview Ron Kalifa, who is chairing the UK's Fintech Strategic Review. Ron probably doesn't need any introduction to anybody around the world for someone who's so well known in the payments landscape. He led World Pay for over 10 years, but he also sits on the court of the Bank of England. He's chairman of Network International, FTSE 250 company, and also chairman of FutureLearn. So he's passionate about skills and talent. And for those who don't know, he's also on the board of the England and Wales Cricket Board. So I think if you ever want to talk to him about cricket, I think that's probably his sport. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Now, I know that I think everyone in the UK knows there's a fintech review going on. We've had the Chancellor speak about it. It's sponsored also by the Economic Secretary to the Treasury. But obviously, we have a global audience here today. And I think we'll just spend some time just finding out a bit more about it, why you've been asked to lead this. Why did you take it on when you've obviously got quite a busy portfolio of things that you've got going on at the moment, especially during COVID? So perhaps you can just start by setting the scene on the review and how it came about.
Sure. Thank you. The review was first announced in the Chancellor's budget in March 2020. It seems like an eternity ago. But given the circumstances, much of the budget at that time was focused on the global pandemic. So the review itself didn't really get the attention it deserved. So I made the conscious decision to pause the review and restart it, and we've restarted it in July with a very clear determination and a vision as to what we want to achieve. So over the course of the last 5-6 months, we've spoken to over 250 stakeholders. We've held numerous workshops. We've met people from all aspects of the financial services system, small and large, to understand precisely what the state of play is for UK fintech.
Can you just tell us your approach to leading the review? Because obviously the fintech sector is such a significant sector. I think if someone said, could you do a review on the financial services sector, you'd probably have an allergic reaction and say no. But you did take it on for fintech. How do you even go about starting that, and what was your approach?
So I think the approach to the review and also the work within it, maybe I should just give you frame it. I think to date, great progress has been made in the UK in building a thriving fintech sector. We have developed a reputation globally as a hub that is worth £11 billion in revenue and contributes over £5.6 billion to GVA, gross value added. But competition is absolutely fierce. When you look at what's going on around the world, there are 66 fintech unicorns. We only have 8 in the UK. We're lagging the US. Who are home to about 37 unicorns, and Asia have got 12. So in many ways, the time to act is now if the UK wants to maintain its position as a dominant fintech hub. A core issue is that whilst we here in the UK are a great location for startups, we haven't been particularly good at scale-ups. But it's relatively straightforward and easy to address, and that's what we're trying to do through this review. So the Treasury and other departments around the government have framed the work around 3 broad objectives. Firstly, how do we ensure that the UK fintech has the resources to grow and to succeed? Secondly, how do we create the conditions for continued widespread adoption of fintech solutions to benefit businesses and individuals? And thirdly, how do we maintain and advance UK fintech's global reputation for the innovation and transformation of financial services? So if you take those objectives, I looked at those through 5 different lenses to identify what are the key issues, the key challenges that we're facing. The 5 are firstly skills and talent, because that's at the heart of everything we do. We are a society that relies on people to deliver outcomes. Skills and talent is the first one. second one is investment. The next critical component is capital. We've got to make sure that capital is available and invested in the right way. The third one is national connectivity. We've got a fairly vibrant country in terms of the numerous things that are going on. People think about it just in terms of London, but actually we've got centres of excellence spread throughout the UK. How do we make sure that they're connected with each other so that we come up with outcomes? The fourth one is on policy and regulation. And finally, on international, how do we make sure that we stay at the forefront of the thinking from an international point of view? So each of those areas have focused on the objectives with a view to delivering solutions with very, very clear outputs that I hope will lead to material outcomes. So these recommendations are going to be made which are actionable. We're using a lot of data, we're doing a lot of research to help government or the private sector or the third sector to create a coalition of these to ensure that we actually land in terms of the recommendations that we're making.
And can you just give us a bit more idea on timing? You said you've been going on for several months now, and you've had fintechs and banks and trade bodies, engaged in the process. When do you expect to get to your recommendations?
Yeah, in many ways we're doing this at breakneck speed. It's not easy to do these type of things given the natural social distancing that's going on, not just in the UK but globally. But basically, we have been talking to all of the different aspects of the financial services sector. We've talked to fintechs, we've talked to banks, we've talked to trade bodies, we've talked to organisations, small and large. We've spent time talking to CEOs of the smallest organisations who are trying to start up through to the largest financial institutions in the UK and overseas. My intention from the beginning was that we needed to include a very, very, very wide range of participants from all aspects of the ecosystem. And we've engaged probably in excess of 250 key stakeholders. Hundreds and hundreds of workshops have taken place. And I think the reality is that we've talked to charitable organisations, we've talked to educational providers, we've talked to regulators, we've talked to trade associations. So I don't think we've left that many stones unturned. What we've got to do is to try and bring this together in a way that's coherent, but importantly actionable, so that the regulators, the government around in terms of the UK can actually take it and do something with it. When will we come to some conclusions? Well, we're in the process of starting to think about our recommendations now. So I'd hope that early in the new year, we'll have something that we can publish.
And we know that an important part of the review is looking at international. Now, obviously, that's even more enhanced in COVID recovery, our life post Brexit. How have you approached that, and how do you think the UK is going to stand on the global stage post these crises?
Yeah, look, I think that at the heart of the question is essentially about how do we compete, but also how do we think about collaboration. I think both aspects are going to be really important as we think about the way that the world is moving forward. At present, the UK is ranked number one in Europe in terms of the number of fintechs, and it's number two in the world. So when you start to think about, we're starting from a very, very good place, and I think a large part of the reason is that we have been having an attractive base in the UK for which to expand globally. Many UK fintechs are already operating overseas and remain very ambitious for continued international growth. But it's not a given that this is going to be the case forever. The fintech sector is globalizing, with competition becoming increasingly global as services can be supplied virtually from multiple locations to customers and partners and in the UK. So Brexit has asked some fairly significant questions as to what the future holds for UK fintechs with an international presence. There are even some concerns over our European crown as businesses look to cities such as Paris, Barcelona, Madrid, Dublin, Stockholm, Amsterdam, and Warsaw that have access to the single market. So for all those reasons, it's really important that we remain competitive and we reform. It's important for the UK to address a number of these issues that's holding it back to ensure that we retain our share of these global business. And I think we need to be realistic. It's important to know and acknowledge that our domestic markets are small in relation to the US and China in particular. But in these circumstances, it's important to look as to how do we collaborate and how do we align with other local fintech centres to create these collaborative networks. So for me, it's a need for being selective and focused, aligning scarce resources against those areas where the UK and its local fintechs need help, and we can, with that help, effectively compete in the medium and the longer term with other local champions in other geographic markets through a strategy that I think is going to be based on collaborative networks. It's also, I think, important for the UK to and promote the recent examples of collaboration agreements, such as those that have been at the heart of, in terms of the UK and US Financial Innovation Partnership, the India-UK Economic and Financial Dialogue. Collaboration through these fintech bridges in the UK has, I think, supported many, many fintechs to expand overseas through its agreements with other nations. So if you just look back and think about where we've come from, since 2016, the government has agreed fintech bridges with Singapore, with South Korea, with China, with Australia, with Hong Kong, and therefore collaboration is such an important part of the future, as well as competition.
I mean, that's great to hear because I know that how many fintechs often tell us, how important international collaboration is. They don't want to think about moving headquarters. They want to stay where they are, grow in the best environment for them, but then obviously to build on that. And I know that many of them have used those bridges, have used that international collaboration to really help them grow into other markets. And we're just at the start of that now, as we get to that scaling up phase that you talked about. I just wonder if you can just maybe share. I know you can't share your recommendations, and I know that you'll be doing the big unveil in the new year. But perhaps you can just share some of your insights from the review and anything maybe that surprised you on that.
Let me tell you a little about the way I'm thinking about the recommendations. And as you say, it's still work in progress, so it would be inappropriate to talk about those in this way. And Charlotte, you, like others, are just going to have to wait for the review to come out. But what was evident from our work is that the rate of change of the industry has started to outpace a number of underlying foundational factors in the UK. Addressing this underpins our recommendations. In particular, we're looking at the absence of a central vision. Now, every organisation, every country has got its own way of doing things. We have that in the UK, but what we need to do is to get better in terms of collaborating and finding ways to bring these things together. There's some great initiatives that are already in the UK. There are a number of public and private entities that are supporting UK fintech development. There's over 25 of them. And we're thinking about how do we make sure that we bring those thoughts together. So that's one. Another is about the level of investment in later stage companies. There are some challenges as part of that, both for scale-ups and also those approaching IPO, which potentially disadvantage the UK as a domicile and can drive those potential unicorns to other markets, most notably the States. But estimates suggest that there's a Series B plus funding for UK fintech of around £2 billion per annum. And we need to make sure that we find ways to collaborate and create interoperability between fintechs and incumbent financial services. And I think, my perspective is that we're on a really good track in terms of doing that. So how do we accelerate that? How do we find ways to solve that? There are some challenges in terms of legacy regulatory barriers that obstruct and slow the progress, as well as potentially missing opportunities. So we're at the heart of that as well. And there's a shortage of resources with the necessary skill sets to support growth of fintechs in the scale-up phase. There are over 80,000 people employed by UK fintech now, and foreign talent represents about 42% of the workforce. So this number is set to grow to well over 100,000 over the coming years. And a restrictive immigration system could result in a loss of opportunity. So I know that the government is keen on finding ways to solve this, and what I'm trying to do is to give them the evidence to say this is how it could be done. The other one for me is about increasing global competition from other markets who are implementing strategies to drive fintech growth and ambition. And as I said earlier, we've got to make sure that we connect across technology-led networks and ecosystems within the UK, which results in us punching in a way well above the weight that we currently are at the moment. So solving these themes can, I think, deliver significant benefit for the UK. And based on the current trajectory, I think I feel very, very positive about the starting position, but also how we're going to go forward. So this is all about opportunity in terms of how we're going to how we're going to take this massive opportunity for fintechs in the UK forward and present it to the government with recommendations.
It's interesting what you're saying about talent and investment and global collaboration. Just perhaps a note on COVID and how that's potentially going to change that. And I know that one of your chapters is levelling up or national connectivity. You do think the fact that perhaps we don't need to bring all that talent into London, where 90% of investment comes into London, and that actually this is going to take down the borders, perhaps investment for those who used to have to come down to London and get investment or fly to the West Coast and seek investment there. Do you think that's going to potentially change our attitudes to how we do business on that and give more of an opportunity to scale?
Yeah, look, I think there's such a drive, such a momentum of opportunity within the UK. London is a microcosm in many ways of the numerous things that are going on across the country. We have got some tremendous centres of excellence spread throughout the UK that what we need to do is to make sure that people know about them, and find ways that we can encourage those hubs, those centres, to expand and frankly to ensure that they stay at the forefront of the UK. People want to be here. London brings and the UK brings so many opportunities in terms of regulatory constraints that can basically disappear if we think about it in the right way. Capital is accessible. We've got access to capital on a global basis. So people want to invest in the UK. And I think what we'll find is that we will be playing our part in full in terms of the scale of the opportunity. But if you think about the things that could be introduced or markets that are developed in a way that would preserve our share of global fintech revenues at around 10%, this would suggest that a total UK fintech GVA opportunity of about £30 billion over the next few years. That's a significant contribution, not just to the economy, but also in terms of jobs and economic growth. So I think, as you can tell from my enthusiasm for this, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to build on the things that we've done and actually take it to the next level.
Well, that's great, and I think we can tell your passion for this review, and I know how many meetings you've taken with our members, and we've got to thank you for that. Perhaps if we can just finish up with the most exciting thing you're going to see in innovation and financial services, because people use the word fintech to really mean financial services and technology, but sometimes people think it means something sort of quite bespoke, but actually it's about embedding in every part of finance. And obviously payments is changing dramatically, and that's been accelerated during the crisis. What's some of the most exciting innovations you're seeing?
Yeah, look, I think fintech has the potential to make a massive impact, a positive impact on society in terms of tackling barriers to financial inclusion by reducing costs and cost barriers and helping develop better financial acumen through tools that help with budgeting, that help with managing finances. So immediately there's an economic benefit that comes with it. It can also help small businesses access finance and digital payments, improve productivity, and frankly manage their cash flow much better. But for me, the exciting thing is that we're only at the beginning. When you look at how far we've come already, it's almost shocking or frightening to think what the future holds. For a long time, I think, as you said, fintech was a bit of a buzzword, but we're starting to see some of those things that it has promised to deliver. We're starting to see startups and large financial institutions collaborating, combining networks and trust with technology. Given my background from a payments point of view, I think most notable for me is seeing how the payments landscape has changed. Seeing people routinely pay for their groceries using mobile phones is just remarkable, given the fact that it only seems like yesterday that there was a public outcry over using chip and PIN. So the global pandemic has also accelerated consumer adoption of digital services as we're forced to adapt. So I can now start to see a situation where consumers are going to demand better, they're going to want faster, cheaper products, and I think fintech will be expected to deliver that. So for all those things, I think this is a tremendously exciting opportunity and a moment in time for us to seize the moment and take this to the next level.
Great. Well, thank you, Ron. I mean, I have to agree with you. If we look at what's happened during COVID, what better time to do this review now of looking, how it's going to respond to that change and that drive forward of innovation in financial services. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. I know everyone's been very interested in this. We're very much looking forward to seeing your recommendations. And on behalf of the fintech community within the UK, thank you for doing the review and sharing your thoughts today.
Thank you, Charlotte.